My name is Nandini Kapadia, and I'm the author of this book, which is called Spiritual Heroines, India's Spiritual Heroines. So I have compiled biographies and life stories of 33 spiritual sages, saints, yoginis, mystics of India, right from the Vedic times till the modern times. And my work is basically a tribute to these extraordinary women who have shaped the spiritual landscape of our subcontinent. So these women, some mythological, some historical, they represent not just the spiritual excellence, but they are like timeless icons of feminine spirituality, and each one embodies a unique facet of Shakti, you would say. So in this tradition, in Indic tradition, the woman is honored, as the embodiment of feminine principle. Like she is revered as Shakti, as Brahma Vidya, as Kundalini, as Devi. So it is very central in this Indic tradition. So what my book does is that this women, they are all embodiments of that Shakti. So this book brings it alive that they were not just consorts, or they were not just devotees, or they were not kind of passively witnessing history or whatever. They were spiritual authorities in their own right. They were sages, they were saints, they were mystics, they were yoginis, and they had deep spiritual knowledge.
Namaste, ladies and gentlemen. I am Ojasvi Mishra, welcoming you to a new series where we wish to define Indic feminism. Here we will explore feminine infinitude citing Indian exemplars. This new initiative taken on Indic Talk Center for Indic Studies is called Sitaism. In this episode of the series, we have with us Nandini Kapadia ji, the author of India's Spiritual Heroines, exploring feminine spirituality through devotion, mysticism, spiritual knowledge, and lived experience. Her work bridges ancient wisdom and modern insight, honoring women who embody spiritual excellence and transcendence. Today, we will be discussing the honor of India's spiritual heroines. And I welcome you, ma'am, and I thank you for gracing our platform. My very first question to you would be, what was the purpose of writing this book?
Namaste, and thank you for having me here. As Ojasvi introduced, my name is Nandini Kapadia, and I'm the author of this book, which is called Spiritual Heroines, India's Spiritual Heroines. So I have compiled biographies and life stories of 33 spiritual sages, saints, yoginis, mystics of India, right from the Vedic times till the modern times. And my work is basically a tribute to these extraordinary women who have shaped the spiritual landscape of our subcontinent. And what they've done is, through their wisdom, their knowledge, their yogic practices, and their deep inner realizations. So these women, some mythological, some historical, they represent not just the spiritual excellence, but they are like timeless icons of feminine spirituality, and each one embodies a unique facet of Shakti, you would say. So my first aim on writing this book was twofold, I would say. One was personal. So in my search, when I was looking for material on other women who were, who underwent struggles of their own, when they were searching for truth, or when they were searching for some kind of a guidance, spiritual guidance. So I was moved by the life of these women and how they navigated their inner struggles, their gender stereotypes, societal expectations, and yet they managed to walk their own path to spirituality, or they to follow their own calling, and despite all the odds. But then, ironically, when actually I was looking online, I couldn't find much material on them, So it got me thinking. I said, I mean, I would find some blogs, some people had written on certain women, or, some academic papers I would find, but I never found any mainstream spiritual narratives on these women, like a biography like this, I mean, compendium, which can give you an overview of all the women who have, kind of shaped this rich legacy. So that was kind of a flash for me, I said, oh, this is where I can fill the gap. So, and because there was silence around their voices, basically, in the mainstream spiritual narrative. So I took up this work, and so that is how this book came about, basically. Yeah.
Wonderful, ma'am. This makes me wonder if you could tell us about the tradition of revering India's women sages and how it is a part of Indic heritage. And how would you position your work within the Indic framework?
Yeah, so I think the Indic civilization at its heart, is like deeply spiritual, not in the religious sense alone, but in its emphasis on inner realization, self-inquiry, inner transformation, and transcendence. So traditions like, you could say, like yoga, Vedanta, bhakti, and religions like Buddhism, Jainism, they are all products of the Indic soil. So in this tradition, in Indic tradition, the woman is honored, as the embodiment of feminine, feminine principle. Like she is revered as Shakti, as Brahma Vidya, as Kundalini, as Devi. So it is very central in this Indic tradition. So what my book does is that we this women, they are all embodiments of that Shakti. So this book brings it alive, that they were not just consorts, or they were not just devotees, or they were not kind of passively witnessing history or whatever. They were spiritual authorities in their own right. They were sages, they were saints, they were mystics, they were yoginis, and they had deep spiritual knowledge. Some of them were called Brahmavadinis because they had mastered the scriptures so much that they used to expound them. They were called to expound them in various public forums. So all these women were there. And so it is, this book is also they embodied Shakti in these various ways, whether it is like fearless, Mirabai's fearless devotion for love for Krishna, or Akka Devi's mystic, ecstasies, or even Maitreyi's philosophical clarity. They are all embodied in their own unique ways. So this book is also kind of a corrective to the modern idea that spirituality in India was male dominated, so which is not so. And so this book is also like a that it gives a continuity to that female voice, so that is one way. Then if you see the Indic tradition, they have this beautiful way of it doesn't separate history and spirituality. So it sees the life of a realized being as a sacred text. It's like a katha, it's like a charita. So in the same way, when you chronicle the lives of these women, it is like it is a form of you're participating in the dharmic mode of remembrance. So it is not just recording facts, but you are invoking their presence, and you're invoking the inspirations. So they can become a means of kind of a transmission. In some it may awaken devotion, in some it may awaken the spirit of inquiry, in others it can awaken some kind of aspiration. So this book is like a continuation of the oral and textual tradition that preserves our civilizational memory. And then in another way that these women this book is a very important one, is that our Indic civilization is not static. It is very dynamic, and it just flows like a river from past to the present. So this book It connects modern readers like the younger generation and the the global diaspora. It connects them to a living spiritual lineage, and it shows that these women are not just distant icons, but they are accessible archetypes. They are role models which can offer you strength and guidance in your own search, in your own search for meaning. So that is in that way again you're ensuring that you're carrying forward this civilizational memory with relevance. And lastly, Indic civilization is all about not about just intellectual discussions or agreements or disagreements. Finally, it is about inner transformation. And this kind of a book can act as a what do you say, like a mirror and a catalyst into your own search. So I think it holds up these lives as examples that how you can live your life with inner freedom and spiritual integrity. So I think this book is more than just a document. I would say it is more of a sadhana. So you are like you are offering them, you are putting these heroines into the light, not just as historical figures, but as vital contributors to this civilizational continuation or memory. Uh,
That was beautifully put, ma'am. Something that I truly believe when it comes to books that dictate the Indic revivalism realm is that before you read the book, it is very important to read into the author of the book, which brings me to
yeah,
the question that what is
right.
your personal spiritual journey?
Yeah, okay. So yes, I would say that my answers may not reflect like intellectual, depth or kind of ideological clarity, because I'm a seeker. I'm a woman and I'm a seeker, and I write from that point. So my journey, as like many other journeys, is like I've gone through a lot of sadhana. I've gone through gurus, and the one guru which impacted me most was Ramana Maharshi. And of course, I never met him in person, but the way he impacted my life, he kind of turned it around. And then after that, of course, that led me to spiritual, like as he advocated self-inquiry. And then, of course, I met Guha, Sabyasachi Guha, his name is, and he's not a renunciator, and he's a grihastha, but he was a very close follower, friend, and of UG Krishnamurti. I don't know if you heard him. So UG Krishnamurti was also a great philosopher and quite a radical one. So Guha was very close to him, and I happened to meet Guha in New Jersey when I was living there in the US at that time. And I instantly connected with him, and I spent many years in close proximity with him, and I learned a lot from him. So my first book was in fact my interactions with Guha, and this is my first book. It's called Life Finds Its Way. And what I would like to say about Guha is that more than learning from him, it is like how much I unlearned from him, like he makes you strip away all the sentimental, spiritual, all kind of baggage that we carry knowingly or unknowingly. And also wanted to say that, in Guha, I found that he gives you a long rope to hang yourself, kind of, so he's not like a typical guru, like in the traditional way. So he never kind of instructs, so he never kind of imposes, but he gives you full freedom to walk into your own traps, kind of. Basically he will follow all your logic. He will listen to all your cherished beliefs and your spiritual narratives, and ultimately he will expose their emptiness, basically. So basically he doesn't want you to hang on to any crutch. You have to stand by yourself, and for that I'm very grateful to him. And I have learned a lot from him in that way. Yeah, in letting go, basically.
Ma'am, coming back to the book, I want to ask you about the favorites that you may have about the women that you covered in the book, and if there are any anecdotes about these women that you'd like to share.
So yeah, there are. I mean, of course, they all have their unique qualities. All of them are special in that sense. But there was one again. There was a mythical yogini. Her name is Sulabha. I don't know if people have heard of her, but she comes. So I'm going to read out. It's not a very long chapter. It's a little short one. So I'll read out to you what I've written about her. Okay, so the chapter is called Sulabha, and I've just given a kind of a depiction here of her, how she's debating in the King of Janaka. So the it is called that I'll just start to read. So not many may recognize her name, but Sulabha is a recurring character in some Vedic and ancient Indian scriptures. She appears mainly as an independent scholarly renunciate depicted differently depending on the text. In the epic Mahabharata in Shanti Parva, she is portrayed as a truly unique and a non-conformist non-conformist renunciate uh, um, and sorry, she's portrayed as a unique and non-conformist, and she is a kshatriya by birth who chose to renounce the material world and marriage in pursuit of truth. So she is an intellectual and an advanced yogini who does not belong to any monastic order. So the story goes that once during her travels, and she had become old, kind of, and she was aging. Then she heard about this King Janaka, that he was a great jnani and all that, and he welcomed all these yogis and renunciates, and he honored them in his court. So she wanted to test him. So what she did was that she took the form of a pretty young sadhvi and flew into, she could fly, she had these yogic powers. So she flew into Janaka's court, and the king's custom was to extend cordial greetings to ascetics and engage them in philosophical discussions. So basically, desiring to know the truth for herself, whether he was indeed emancipated, she chose an unorthodox method of verifying the philosopher's attainments. So, using her power, she entered into his inner being, his understanding, and read his mind. So that was a very unusual way. Nobody had done this before. So, Janaka was also an accomplished yogi, and he reacted to that with great hostility because he realized what she had done. So, and he was unaccustomed to being challenged in this manner by a woman. So he was more, peeved that she was a woman. So he demanded to know who she was, whose she was, and where she had come from, and where she was going. So he launched into a long tirade based on gender stereotypes and conventional notions. He aggressively argued that it was not possible for a young, beautiful woman like her to be a real renunciate because she would be unable to master her senses. And he also boasted at length about his own superiority among sages. So Sulabha's reply to Janaka's anti-women rhetoric and criticism of her unconventional methods were more exquisite than her person. With impeccable logic based on Hindu philosophical principles, she simultaneously challenged the status quo and effectively silenced the king. So what she argued was that the self is not gendered. She says the body is gendered, but the Atman is not gendered. So the Atman is one and the same in all beings, regardless of the body's gender. Then she says that men and women are equal. Essentially, there is no difference between a man and a woman. Since all creation has the same Atman, there is really no difference between the capabilities of men and women. And thirdly, she says that an enlightened person does not judge. So she said his preoccupation with gender proved that he was not nearly as detached from the world as he would like to believe. So she then asserted that a truly evolved, self-realized person who recognized the oneness of all things would not judge anyone based on the physical body, gender, or marital status. So she was a brilliant and maverick yogini from the past, and and she is an example of what we in modern times term feminism, maybe. Yeah. So this is one of my favorite stories. There are others also, like Sister Nivedita, who was a disciple of Swami Vivekananda. She was also she was a fiery Irish woman, but how her relationship with Swami Vivekananda evolved, and how she, did so much for the country as well. On, like as a she lived in Calcutta, and she all kinds of she did so much for women's education, poor girls. So she was a very special lady. I liked her character a lot as well. Yeah.
Those were some very valuable and I think underexplored takeaways when it comes to talking about important women exemplars that are often not talked about, especially when talking about spirituality. Because oftentimes when we
Yeah.
talk about spirituality, we may talk about renunciation or brahmacharya, and it just seems to be
Yeah.
covered in the context of how men may observe it, but never really
Right.
the women. Which
Yeah.
actually brings me to the discussion of Vedic Rishikas. You just discussed Sulabha, which is again, like I said, an underexplored Rishika.
Right.
I want you to tell
Mm.
us something more about the Vedic Rishikas.
So Vedic Rishikas, I think the two most important ones are Gargi, and one was Maitreyi. And there was Lopamudra also, who was Sage Agastya's wife. So Gargi was very, I think, in modern terms, you could call her a nerdy of, she loved the scriptures, and she was the daughter of a sage called Vachaknavi. I think her full name is Gargi Vachaknavi or something like that. So they show her as a character who, right from the word go, is not interested in what other girls are interested in. She doesn't want to marry, and she wants to dedicate her life to learning the scriptures. And luckily for her, her father was very supportive, and he understood the daughter's needs. So he himself was her teacher and guide, and in time she became an authority on the scriptures. And uh, she used to be called in various public forums to expound them. And the main one story is in that it occurs in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, where there is a famous debate between all scholars, and King Janaka again has invited, and there's going to be one Gyani Yagya kind of a thing. So she was the only woman who was invited there. And they show her arguing. So one by one, the scholars they started debating. Yagyavalakya was a great sage scholar in those days, and it was very difficult to defeat him. So the story goes that how she engaged him in questions which brought about a lot of clarifications in the nature of spirituality. And even though she lost to him, she gave us very value. The type of question she put to him that showed us her expertise and her intellectual capabilities. So even King Janaka was impressed by her, and he conferred the title of Navaratna on her because she was so good in what she was. So that is one Gargi. And then Maitri was also another Rishik. And Gargi has also written some hymns in the Rig Veda, one of the few women Rishikas. And Lopamudra was also the sage of Agastya's consort, and she was supposed to be a woman with brains and beauty. She was supposed to be very beautiful, but at the same time, she appears in 2 3 places. She appears in Mahabharata also. She appears here also. So there are like mix up of stories. But in one story, it is that she was raised as a king's daughter, like a princess, but she gave up everything and she went to live with Agastya. She marries him because she wants to learn from him. So they were all like very women with a lot of spiritual integrity, who didn't allow the odds to stand in their way when they were when they felt it was their calling. So this is some of the Vedic Rishikas of note. Yeah.
Ma'am, one of the reasons we started this initiative was because it seems to me that modern feminism today, especially in its newer waves, seems to be promoting hyperautonomy and individualism to a point where important constructs like family and spirituality, that is, while you are within the family and after it, are often overlooked. Which brings me to the
Mm.
question that are you a feminist? And do you think there is a need of Indic feminism, which is to understand women emancipation and women rights from an Indic perspective that caters to Indian realities and Indian culture? And is there something to Indic feminism that the global feminism today is not able to provide?
That's a good question. Yes, I'm not into any isms as such, whether it's feminism or whatever it is. But yes, I do believe in equality, absolutely. And women today are in a much better position than they were, earlier. But historically speaking, but yes, I do believe there should be equal rights, equal opportunities in all levels for women, and they need to be given, in the especially in the poorer sections, they should be given opportunities for education, proper healthcare. So basically, yes. So only if one section of the society is neglected and not given opportunities to rise, the society can never progress. There can never be peace and harmony. So from that angle, yes. And what Indic heritage, again, as I said, I'm not an intellectual. I'm just a woman and a seeker. But what I feel that one thing I've understood about this Indic heritage is that it is based on Dharma, basically, which is a very, living, evolving kind of a principle. And so, in in Indic feminism, in that perspective, can be that it is more integrated. It is. I think the best example I can give is of that Ardhanareshwar. Like, in already the Indic civilization, already women worships the woman as, embodiment of Shakti. So that aspect is there. But of course, in reality, somehow in today's day and age, it doesn't match up. But that is the ideal. So I think the symbolism of Ardhanareshwar is a very beautiful one, where the feminine principle and the masculine principle is exactly like, half. So like in any society, again, the masculine and the feminine and the Shiva and Shakti and Purusha and Prakriti and all, it has to be perfectly balanced. Only then can we live in harmony, peace, and there can be progress. So I think that is what Indic heritage does offer, is that this concept of a woman which is very holistic and which is very spiritually grounded, I feel. So that which the Western model would not offer.
I think one of the presumptions people make when we talk about spirituality is that it is only something that is associated with renunciation. But my question is that how does spirituality work in tandem with pursuits within the material realm? I think your spiritual pursuit, something as simple as just meditation, can really help your performance within the material realm as well. So I want you to dive into how renunciation may only just be one of the dimensions of what spirituality helps you achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not everybody has to wear robes of renunciation and, sit in a cave to meditate. I mean, Ramana Maharshi used to say that even if you go to the cave, you will carry your mind with you there. So it doesn't work like that. And if it's really a calling for someone, then they would not be asking a question whether I want to be a renunciate. So basically, we have to balance our life and, find what matters to us most, and we have to give it, I guess it's all about work life balance, or prioritizing what you really want to do in life, what your aspirations are and goals are. So if those are clear, then I think nobody needs to be a renunciate in that sense. You can still follow your goals with all your heart and soul, I would say.
But another question that comes to mind is about the recent developments in the reproductive health of women. I think with growing opportunities for women, another issue that has happened is that a spiritual practice as simple as going to the temple has become also very seldom for a woman. And I think her lack of spiritual pursuit is one of the many reasons that there are so many lapses in the health of women, especially within the reproductive section of our health, or the reproductive aspects of our health. Um, I want you to dive into what may be the spiritual reasons for why cases of PCOD, cases of endometriosis, cases of infertility, which can, affect more than just your ability to have children. It affects your energy levels, your performance as an employee, your relationships with others. How does spirituality aid in that?
Spirituality, see, first of all, today the world is, in so much of a kind of flux. I mean, it's not, you see wars everywhere, and it's at the micro level as well as the macro level, because we are all part of it finally. So I guess it affects every one of us, how, how your body reacts to these outward influences as well. And I think meditation definitely helps calm the mind. And even if, like, if in and certain yogic pranayams and certain yogic practices, they also calm the mind, and they also kind of bring about inner balance, which is quite important to function in today's world, I think. So I think all of us, it would help a little bit if we, again, we have to prioritize and do it for ourselves, for our own health. But I guess it's for each one of us to take that decision.
Yes, ma'am. And moreover, I think fasting as a practice is something that I think people are missing opportunities on. There are so many studies about the kind of, benefits fasting has for everybody, but more importantly for women, for something as simple as higher cell turnover, a faster metabolism, and all of that. So it feels really sad that people are leaving that unexplored just because it is something that is written in our scriptures, and people just seem to be pursuing everything that is written in the West. That brings me to a very important question. How do you
Mm.
think that the way in which Indian history and Indian literature encapsulates a female personality compares to the rest of the world?
Are you asking from the Indic perspective, or
Yes, my question is aimed at basically asking that when you were reading about these female personalities, you may have seen how a female personality is written in the Western history records and how they are written in the Indian history records. And how do you think they differ from one another?
So again, from the Indic perspective, I would say that our women, Indic women, are more like adherents of Dharma they've shown, which is not in the West. Kind of the West is way more individualistic, way more outgoing, way more, they want social freedom, they want sexual freedom, which is not the case with the Indic literature, I guess, which is more dharma based and more, within that, the laws laid down by the dharma, based on that. And in that, they manage to find their own way to navigate their inner struggles, their navigate the social expectations, navigate gender stereotypes, and still remain true to their calling. That's the difference I find.
Lastly, ma'am, this initiative is called Sitaism, and I would want to ask you what is your personal interpretation of what Sitaism may be, or what an ideology that may be based on the Vidhi and Nidhi of the life of Sita may look like, and if there is any story about Sita that has stayed with you over the years.
Okay. So I have never heard of the term Sitaism. I don't know what it means, but I can tell you what Sita means to me, So um, uh, I would say that the character of Sita is overly simplified, I would say, in our narratives. She is, I think, very enigmatic. In some, just when you think that you figured her out, you realize there is way more to her than that. So she is very enigmatic, and also she kind of symbolizes strength, inner strength, and dignity, and she's often misunderstood as being submissive, or passively suffering, but that is not so. I think that's a very a superficial way of looking at her character. What I see in her is that she's the choices she makes are derived from her own inner convictions. I think inner convictions, inner truths, or inner clarity, whatever you want to say, and that gives her so much dignity and so much strength of endurance, I would say. So in the when she chooses to go into exile with Rama, it is her choice. Nobody asked her to go. In fact, everybody dissuaded her from going, but she would not hear of it. Secondly, the second time, the when she's asked to go do that Agni Pariksha, she agrees. But in the end, also, when she is asked to prove the parentage of her children, and she's again asked to do Agni Pariksha in front of the court, she refuses. And instead, she invokes her mother and goes into her protective arms, Bhumi Devi. Because I think, and from a woman's point of view, I feel that maybe Rama could have stood by her at that point, But how many times a woman has to prove herself? So her Agni Pariksha, the first one and the last one, they really make me kind of, this very, very, very intensely moving episodes for me, because when she is rescued from Lanka and brought home, so instead of celebration, she's asked to undergo Agni Pariksha. She has to prove her chastity. She has to prove her purity, which of course she comes out unscathed because she's ever pure, as we all know. But her trials and tribulations are also for the same for many of us, aren't they? Even today, literally, a woman is burnt alive because she put less salt in her husband's meal. You know, we every day we face gender biases. Every day we face injustices. So that trials and tribulations are still going on, and I see that in Sita's life also we see, and then it really makes me feel sad, that this lovely character, she had to undergo so much, for she had to face abduction, she had to go into exile, she had to prove her purity and chastity and all the time, So these Agni Pariksha, these trials by fire, have kind of stayed with me, I would say. Yeah.
That's a wonderful story that has stayed with you, ma'am. I believe one of the things that is most beautiful about their union was that it was met with just endless love and respect for one another, something that even
That
surpassed the
is true. They
longevity
had,
of their
yes,
union.
yes.
Yeah.
She had a very strong bonding with Rama. They loved each other. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Whether it is the fact that he had his golden figure or the fact that he died taking her name and then took Jalasamadhi. I think the kind of bond that they had, it's just otherworldly and very difficult for us to understand, which is probably why we often don't take their marriage as an example of what may be understood as ideal in the present
Right.
times.
Yes. Yeah.
My last question to you would be an inquiry about the new projects that you may be working on.
Yeah, I'm working on another book right now, which is short stories, and it's based on my own life. And it's just like that I wanted to, go into my own childhood and the things, come back to you later on in life. So I have written it from that point of view. These are just basically, I'm recounting my moments of grace and revelations, basically. That is my, again, on spiritual backdrop. And so it's a very personal project this time. Unlike the last one, which was more academic in nature, I would say. Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful note to leave this on. Thank you very much for the interview, ma'am. We wish to have many such talks with you. Namaste.
Thank you. Namaste.